Grinders. Welcome to DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blenderhead, Blender HD. If you want to follow me on Twitter, and this is the show where I answer your DFS strategy questions: NFL, NBA, PGA, MMA, soccer. This is soccer slate today. And chat in the YouTube. I see you guys in there. Give me those thumbs up. Give me the thummy thumbs. I'll wave my thumbs at you until I get it. The thummy thumbs, ups, downs, doesn't matter, sideways, just click around on the screen. Perfectly fine. Helps us out. Suki Singh, as usual, early. Apocalypse Card Fan, Eric Robertson, Max Coach, Hog Lawrence, Jerome Lewis, Trey, Grant Brown. Good morning. I can always tell the people that are into NFTs and crypto or whatever when they're GM, right? GM in the coffee cup or something like that. Probably nothing, right? That's all I know about. That's all I know about the NFT people. GMs and quote retweets of probably nothing, or something like that. But probably nothing. There's probably nothing going on today on the show. I don't know what we'll talk about. What do you want to talk about? I don't know. Type it in the YouTube chat. Just a programming note. I want to give a programming note for until NFL season is over. There will be no DFS pregame show on Tuesdays and Wednesdays until NFL season is over. I'm doing this primarily because I've not played NBA DFS in about 2.5 weeks or so, and I don't plan on playing NBA DFS until the NFL season is over because it's exhausting, and I tend to like being in the groove when playing DFS. Okay, like I like the summer MLB, for instance. Like some people don't like it. It's like July, right? June, July, August, where pretty much MLB is kind of the only thing going on. Yes, there'll be some soccer slates, but typically they're in the afternoon or in the mornings. MMA, Saturday nights. Okay, that's, I could take off a baseball slate then, but I like the groove of like every day, very similar process, not as exhausting MLB because, occasionally we get, we don't know who the starting pitcher is going to be until like the afternoon. Or, the Giants or the Dodgers have a late lineup in. We get that like 20 minutes after lock. Like that's how as much of the work that you need to do. But you could be on a groove every day of like, I know my process. I know what I'm looking for. I could wake up, review the slate before, 11 o'clock in the morning, right? Look at that. Take a look at what's coming up that day. You don't have to wait for that much news. Yes, the starting lineups, the batting orders aren't out, but they're a little bit more predictable. So you can kind of go through and get a sense of the slate and then leisurely go on with your day. And then by, 6 o'clock Eastern or something, then you start, making your lineups, the batting orders come in and you're good to go. And you can just do this day after day after day after day. NBA doesn't really work like that. NBA, you take off 3 days, 4 days of slates or something, and you come back and you go, why is Chimizi Metu going to be chalk? I mean, like you just you don't even know what the hell's going on. So I prefer to be in the groove when it comes to playing daily, like NBA, MLB type of stuff, where there are slates every single day. And I'm probably giving up an edge by just not playing, and even if I'm playing at 80% capacity, right, mental capacity. But I like playing at 100% mental capacity. So until I could be in the groove and then be able to, obviously, you have to play all night. You have to be by your computer. So on Mondays and Thursdays, I do the Showdown show here at RotoGrinders. So I can't play NBA. I'm not even going to bother because that show goes on. Like NBA Lock is typically 7 o'clock. And then the show that I do for Showdown is from like 7:30 to 8:30. Well, what happens if something happens? I mean, like, what am I supposed to do? I'm doing a show. I can't change 100 lineups. I can't barely pay attention to what's going on in NBA, making late swap if possible. So it's like, okay, I'm giving up too much by like not being attentive during that period. So I can't play Mondays and Thursdays. Sundays are NFL, so I'm not playing NBA. And then Saturdays I play soccer and MMA. So I typically don't play NBA on those days. Fridays, I have the busiest day. I have like 4 shows that I do on Fridays. Friday night's not busy, but sometimes you need to leave time for your personal life, right? You got to wait to make the wife happy, right? Happy wife, happy life. So a lot of times on Friday nights, I spend time with my wife. So what am I left with? Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And like, am I just going to play NBA Tuesdays and Wednesdays and then I play Wednesday, and then by the time Tuesday comes around, I have no idea what the hell's going on. Who's dead? Who's out for COVID? Why? What's going on? So I'm just playing when I'm in the groove. So that won't be until after NFL season is over. And since I'm not going to be playing NBA, it's kind of hard to review slates when I'm not really sure what the hell was going on in the first place. Who projected well the day before? What was the ownership and everything? I'm not paying attention as much. So to do that on this show without giving 100% effort seems stupid to me, right? Seems disingenuous, right? So to just want to make a program now. No Tuesdays and Wednesdays. You won't see the YouTube. You won't see it. It's not like there's going to be a thumbnail and a video that you could be in the waiting room for, and then I'm not showing up. It's just you just won't see it there. Okay, but I always want to highlight that programming note for the rest for basically the next 5 weeks until NFL season is over. Once NFL season is over, then we're hardcore NBA. Then we're just into NBA. And it's gonna be NBA every day until MLB comes up, and then it'll be MLB every day, and some NBA mixed in because obviously April is crossover. But typically I stop playing NBA. I don't play the NBA playoffs much. So yeah, so that's kind of just a bit of background instead of like, oh, why aren't you doing Tuesdays and Wednesdays? Well, if I'm not playing NBA, what are we going to talk about? Like, that's why I'm showing up today, Wednesday, December 1st, going, what do we talk about? I'm like, we could talk about anything you want in the YouTube chat. I have no problem with that. No problem answering questions. But sometimes you go in and sometimes people don't have as many questions. And also, if you have any questions, I want to say, if you were in here yesterday for the infomercial, essentially, I have a new Discord channel in the RotoGrinders Discord. You can see the nice little graphic here. Blender's Game Theory, premium Discord channel. It's like all the stuff that I talk about here on the pregame show. A lot of people can't make this show. But if you want to have 24/7 conversation, it doesn't mean I'm in there all the time, like 3 a.m. But I answer everyone's questions. Everyone's questions. There's conversations going on right now, right? We got some of the regulars from the chat in there as well. Good discussion. It's not it's not people yelling at each other. But if you're a premium member of RotoGrinders, you have to be a premium member. Whether you could even just be a single sport, it doesn't matter. So as long as you're paying something to RotoGrinders, you could sign up rotogrinders.com/premium. If you're a premium member, all you have to do is connect your RotoGrinders account to Discord. You can download Discord. Discord's web-based. It's similar to Slack, right? That type of thing. You can get it on your phone and just join the RotoGrinders Discord server. We do have free channel. We do have some free channels there that you could use. But my channel is part of the premium channels. There are a bunch of premium channels also. So you connect that and then just head in there. And in addition to the chat in there, me answering questions and obviously people, conversing amongst themselves about game theory. It's the channel is not about that day's slate or yesterday's slate. It's not necessarily, it's about overall DFS strategy. Once you get in there, I will be doing weekly coaching calls. So it'll be a group coaching call over Zoom where people can ask and be able to explain their own personal play, right? Because it's kind of hard to do that even in a chat room. I'll give the background of like, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. This is what I'm doing, X, Y, and Z. What advice would you give X here and there? And we could have up to 100 people on Zoom at a time. So there'll be weekly times. You'll know in advance. I have alerts set up in the Discord for you to sign up for, and then every week there'll be a time. Then I'll change the time. Some people are good during the day. Some people are good at night. Some people are good at the weekends. So it won't be the type of thing where it's going to be the same time and same day every week. So like every week I'll post. It's like, okay, Thursday at 8, or maybe Tuesday at 3, or like that type of thing. Just so, it kind of spreads it around for the people that may not, they have a 9-to-5 job and they don't just play DFS like I do. They can't make necessarily 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but they can make Saturday at 3 in the afternoon, or they can make Friday night or, something like that. So it'll be switched around and then, do that for an hour or two. And that's part, there's no extra nothing. People ask me about coaching and I never understand, like, there's nothing I could say to you privately that's going to be any different than I would explain on this show in the Discord and any of the content that I do. So it seems like a way that's not in the class, right? You buy the Masterclass, right? So there you go. That's all the base knowledge. But some people have, the personal, like this is what I'm doing, very specific things. And I feel that that it's easier taken care of, in a private Discord community that has less of the riffraff, right? People that get what we should be talking about. No 2v2 questions, right? I can take a look here. The show, the chat room's even going on while I'm even doing the show, right? We're talking about duplicates in like Showdown and MMA. Like how do you get more unique? Someone was asking about game theory books, which I mean obviously the quintessential game theory book is Theory of Games and Economic Behavior by Morgenstern and whatever the fuck, right? Newman, yeah, von Neumann and Morgenstern. But it's from 1944. I mean, this is a math book. So like if you're not highly advanced math, probably not the best book to get. But that is like the quintessential game theory book. But I mean, chat goes on. I mean, you can see here. I pulled up Discord, right? People signing up for the alerts here, right? I remember last night, like someone's at like, I want to make a mention. I make it on this show all the time that people focus, like someone asked a question. I fathom that 95% of things you're considering for a slate, you could disregard altogether and you do better. 95%, I've always mentioned that 95%. Like 95% of what you do, like that's what you should be focusing on. Where that 95% is. The 5% extra is a lot of the stuff that people talk about. Like, can I play this guy and that guy together in an NBA lineup? It's like, well, I mean, you can or you can't. It depends on the lineup. But if you're focused so much on that and not on the three things that you have to grasp the most, here are the three things that make 95% of building profitable lineups: projection, ownership, and the contest size and the payout structure of the contest. That's it. Until you could perfect these three, then the other 5%, that what is that? Why are you spending so much time on that? Right? So some people are like, oh, can I play Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan in the same lineup together? Right. Well, it depends on the price. It depends on the size of the slate. You could even then there is some negative correlation past the 80th percentile of their distributions, most probably at their efficient prices. So if they both were priced efficiently, and their 80th percentile outcomes would start to get negatively correlated with one another. Now on a 12-game slate, an NBA, the opportunity cost of, there's so many more options. Maybe you don't play them together. On a 3-game slate, probably perfectly fine. Do you need 2 80th percentile outcomes on a 3-game slate? Not necessarily. So playing them both together is perfectly fine. On a 12-game slate, playing both of them together is still perfectly fine. But now the opportunity cost of like, well, now you have all these other games to choose an 8K level player. So why are you playing two similar price players that take away from their ceilings, their 80th plus percentile outcomes? Like, doesn't mean you can't do it though. I mean, you still can. But like trying to decide that, if you're spending time on that and not time on worrying about the projections and the ownership, then it's pointless. Why are you concentrating on that last 5% versus the 95% that you could easily be a winning player just on that? There are plenty of sharp players that don't even consider some of the stuff that people ask. It's like I have my numbers, right? You go in, it's like, okay, I got the floor, I got the ceiling, I got the median, I got everything. I got optimal percentages and ownership, and just build lineups. There you go. What size contest are you playing, and what is this payout structure? And I always say the payout structure as a variable, but a lot of times it's not going to matter that much because most of these contests are very top heavy anyway. But there would be a difference on like a much flatter versus a much heavier, right? A top heavy payout structure, but almost every contest is a top heavy payout structure. So like you're not, even the flatter ones are still top heavy. So you're not necessarily, making any decisions based on the payout structure of the contest typically. But the contest size, definitely. So are you building lineups that are commensurate with the size of the contest? Because the smaller the contest, the less projection you don't have to give up, and you don't have to have the insanely low ownership, right? You don't have to sacrifice projection for ownership as much. Where is that line? Well, that's the game of DFS. Where is that line? That's the point. Where we have to find that line. You have to judge where that line is. In a large field contest, you have no problem sacrificing projection for ownership. Where's that line? Well, that's for you to judge, right? And then you have these numbers, then you have like ownership. To me, ownership is the most fluid. We don't have ownership for the NBA slate coming up. These are just the algorithmically generated projections from this morning. But yes, you could use RotoGrinders ownership. It's perfect. It's perfectly fine. But I change the ownership numbers, right? I aggregate some of the ownership numbers, right? Because I know that I'm not in a bubble. So if like we have someone at 28%, and I'm like, I think he's going to be more like 35%. I change it to 35. And I bump down some players that would fit in that spot if it wasn't for the fact that he was 35% owned. Also, you change it for the size of the contest, because our ownership is going to be for primarily the large field featured GPP of that day on DraftKings, for instance, right? The $15, whatever the hell, the $18 tip, whatever it is, for 50 or 100K up top. But let's say you're playing the power suite type of contest, the 150, the Showtime, right? The 222, 4 max or something. And then you go, okay, this is an 800 entry contest. It's like, well, shouldn't you be changing the ownership? A guy that's going to be 28%, 32% in the large field, maybe 46% in that contest. So what you could do is either change the ownership to match the contest that you're in. And is there a way for you to do it without kind of simulating everything? Yeah, you do it bluntly, you manually, right? Sometimes you just make an estimate. That's what I do. Just make an estimate. How do you know the guy's going to go from 32 to 46? I don't, right? I'm right more often than not. I'm directionally right more often than not, right? The guy that's 32 in large field, I think is going to be 46 in small field, and he ends up at 43. Okay, I wasn't perfect, but I was directionally accurate, right? Sometimes he ends up at 54, and I'm like, okay, I undersold that. Sometimes he doesn't move. Sometimes it's like, oh, he actually ended up only 34%. Obviously, it affects the lineups that I build, because the higher owned that I think the guy is, the less likely I am to play him. But you can make that judgment. Or what you could do is leave the ownership the way it is and try to figure out what the cumulative ownership of lineups in that contest should be, right? If compared to the large field GPP. So for instance, if you take the chalk lineup, let's say the chalk type of lineup in a large field GPP is the total is 180. I'm just making up a number, right? Well, the total of all those players, those exact players in the small field GPP, may end up being 260. Okay, but now you have something to compare it to. So it's like, so you have 260 and 180. So it's like, well, I don't want to play the 260 lineup. I want to play a lineup that's more like 220 or 200. Well, you can't generate a lineup that's 200 because you're not changing the ownership to the small field contest. So what ratio wise, what is that? So if the chalky type of construction is going to be 260% total ownership in the small field, it equates to the 180 in the large field. So if you want to get down to like 200, well, that's like 60 points underneath or so, right? What's the ratio there? So the 180 lineup in the large field would be more like 120 or 130. So once you know, it's like, okay, a lineup with a total ownership of about 130 in the large field is kind of what I'm aiming for in the small field. So you could do stuff like that. These are blunt ways to kind of judge. But you got to change the numbers. I mean, you either change the numbers, or you need to, these aren't static for just like all contests. But to me, spend more time doing that than worrying about, can I play two centers against each other? especially in the NBA when correlations are the weakest of almost all the sports. That's like a tiebreaker. Like consider that to be like, oh, you're building lineups and whatever. And if you see that, maybe you go, maybe I X that one out. Like that, to that extent. Like if you don't even consider it, you may be better off as long as you're taking care of the three things, right? So to make it clearer, this is what I mean, this is the channel. I mean, this is, I teach in this channel. So to make it even clearer, answer these three questions. Do you have the projected range of outcomes for every player on the slate? Okay, so answer that question. Yeah, if you sign up for RotoGrinders, you get that. You get our projections for every sport. Okay, so you should have that. The projected range of outcomes. Remember, it's not just the median, right? The projection is the entire distribution range of outcomes within one standard deviation. Number two, do you have the projected ownership for every player on the slate for the contest you're playing? Now, when I say every player, I mean, you don't have to go down to the guy that's going to play 4 minutes off the bench. Maybe it doesn't matter if you have that guy's project. Maybe you don't have to get that guy's ownership is going to be 0.01. No cares. But you get what I'm talking about. So do you have the ownership? Do you have the projected range of outcomes? Do you have the projected ownership? Do you have the field size and payout structure for the lineup you're building? Right? Which you know. I mean, you'd sign up for contests on Draftkings, right? I'm playing the $12 single entry with 3,600 entries. Right? Okay. You know what line, you know what contest you're building towards for that, a lineup for that contest. But I'm also playing the $5 3 max, which has 1,700 entries. Okay, well, that's you have the information on that. Once you have the information on all those three, the projected range of outcomes for every player, projected ownership for every player, and the field size that you're building for, and the payout structure, even though they're pretty much all top heavy, you're done. If you can answer yes to all three, you're done. There's nothing else you need to care about. Don't waste your time considering anything else. Now you'll hear people go, well, how about this? And how about considering this? I'm not saying those things aren't important, but they're none of those things are going to be any important other than these three things, right? Because I'm not even mentioning correlation. Obviously, in NBA, the correlations are weak. In MLB, the correlations are strong, right? In MLB, most likely you're going to be stacking, right? But when people get caught up on, well, can I stack? What's the gaps between the players? Right? Can I play 1, 4, 5, 8? Like, what's the highest gap? And I tell them and said, don't worry about it. All the players on the team are correlated to each other. Yes, the ones that are closer to each other are slightly more correlated. But if you don't get these three things right, what do you care about? Like, that's part of that extra last 5%, right? If you even want to care about it, a lot of people don't. A lot of the top players don't even care about that, right? To go, well, in this lineup, maybe I could get the gaps smaller together. It doesn't matter that much, right? If you're not doing these three things well, do these three things. Have your process to take advantage of the projection, the ownership, and the field size of your contest. Do that well. And I said, once you fully grasp and are fully experienced using these three, just those three to build your lineups and show long-term profit doing so, which can take 1, 2, 3 years for you to be comfortable and say, I'm just using these things, and you're playing lower stakes most probably, and you're like, okay, I'm showing a 17% return in GPPs over a full MLB season and a full NBA season and a full NFL season, maybe a season and a half, and you go, I'm much more comfortable with this, right? And your bankroll is hopefully building up. Maybe you slightly move up in stakes. And that once you get to that point, then you could start going, okay, how can I add more to this, right? Then you could start worrying necessarily about, well, maybe to increase my edge, maybe should I be playing these two centers together? Should I be doing this? Should I be, should I be doing this? And like those types of questions, which is a bulk of the questions I could ask in DFS. The number one thing, the two most important things to ask DFS is what's the projection and what's the ownership. That's it. If you have those two, there's nothing else to look at. There's nothing. Everything sport related is in the projection, and everything opponent related is in the ownership, right? And a lot of people ask, like, well, what's the most accurate projections, right? The most accurate ownership, because I mean, I know we're here at RotoGrinders, but we're not going to be, in a bubble and know that there aren't other sites that do projections and do ownership. And obviously, some top players do their own, right, proprietarily. right? It's not publicly available. And you go, well, which one is the most accurate? If I'm going to choose between RotoGrinders and these 5 other places, which is the most accurate, right? Which ownership is the most accurate? That's not the right question to ask. The right question to ask is whatever you're looking at more accurate than what you can do yourself, right? Imagine none of this existed. Is this better? You would have to do it yourself. You would have to make your own model. You'd have to calculate your own ownership, right? Even if you're doing it not even with a model, you're just like assigning numbers to players and go, I think that guy's median is 42 and the ownership is going to be 20. I mean, you could do it that way. You're probably not going to be accurate long-term doing it that way. But that's your question should be not who is you're not going to get an edge in DFS by going like, well, this site has slightly more accurate and slightly more accurate owner. Which one has the most you're not getting an edge that way. If you look across the industry, the R squared of both player projections and ownership projections are quite high and quite similar to each other. And when I say that the R squared could be similar to each other, that's from a large sample size. So on certain days, two sites could have like a 2-point difference in an NBA player's median. And then the other day could be the other way and this way. And like, it's not on a player by player basis. It's on a model wide basis. So all the players in the player pool, and you're judging that versus actual over the course of time. But the accuracy of those is comparable. So even though you may look today on today's slate, we here at RotoGrinders have a guy with a 24-point median, and some other site has 25, a 1-point difference. You go, well, which one is more accurate? That's not the right question. The question is, if I took away both models, would you have been able to put in 24 or 25, right? Maybe another site has 24.8 and another site has 24.2. The difference between 24 and 25 on one single player doesn't make much of a difference. You should be comparing it to like, is this better than what I could do myself? And I can build my own model. I can. It's not my strength, but I can do it. The problem is that I can't build an NBA model better than RotoGrinders, right? Better than Jamino and the guys on the projection team. I can't do it better than them, right? No matter what I do, I'm not going to be able to do it better than them. If I'm able to do a better model, it would take me a long time, a lot of hours. Hundreds of hours. And at the end of the day, if I'm able to do it better, it may only be slightly better. So am I going to spend 400 hours perfecting a model for any sport, right? Like take a look at the Blitz with Cardi. Am I going to, how long is it going to take me to build a model that's comparable? Probably not even better, but comparable to the Blitz. God knows. I mean, I would have to learn some things I don't even know it yet in order to get to that point. So how many hours am I spending doing that? And if I'm able to do it better than Cardi, how much better am I? How much more accurate am I going to be long term? Not much. So why am I spending 500 hours to do that? Right. So that should be the question. Not what is the most accurate. It's better. Whatever it is, it's still much more accurate than random Joe Schmo in the toilet making lineups, right? Or the ownership. Who's the most accurate ownership? They're all pretty good. They're not going to be right on every single player every day. That's not what you're looking for. Are they going to be directionally right? Or what's the R squared of that going to be? It's going to be fairly consistent across the industry. You could, if you want, that's why some people don't just sign up for RotoGrinders, they sign up for a bunch of sites and then they average all the numbers together. Or they weight the ones that they prefer or something, right? Sometimes it's not an even weight. I take 5 projections and, I weight this one 30%, this one 10%. If you have some type of confidence level, if you wanted to do that. But sometimes you just take an average of all of them and go, okay, I got the numbers. Now it's my job to put the numbers together in better ways than my opponents will. And that's all you need. It's 2021, 2022 in DFS. That's what it is. It ain't 2014 anymore. right? It ain't 2014. So like once you get projection, ownership, field size figured out, like then move on to like get those things, get those things firmly grasped. That's why when people ask, like, do you like this guy? Do you like that guy? It's like, I don't like anyone. All I see are numbers, right? Do you like Brogdon? Do you like Levert? Which, like, all I see is a projection and an ownership. That's like, what am I supposed to like, right? I don't even care about the outcomes of the games. I just want to build lineups that have a higher expected value, positive expected value over time. Going through the YouTube chat. Like Jerome Lewis asked about NBA stacking. Right, stacking isn't important. We the only reason we add a stacking feature in there, obviously it helps more on the smaller slates, is that if you wanted to make groups, you saying like, oh, if I'm playing like what Denver Orlando is playing, it's like, well, if I play Jokic at 11-8 or I play Giannis at 12-1, like I want to have two, like in a Giannis lineup, I want to have two Hornets on the other side, right? Because he's so expensive that you want him to get max. You want him to score 75 plus points or something. Jokic against Orlando. And you're like, well, if Jokic is a lineup, I want to have at least one or two Magic. It's so much easier to do it in the stacks than do it in the groups, especially when if you're going to use multiple players. Because like, look, you have Drew Holiday here. Let's say you're like, well, if I have Giannis, Holiday, and Middleton, and you're like, I only want to play one of them, right? I only want to play one of the three. Let's say this is what you want. I only want to play one of the three, and if I do play one of the three, I want to play at least one guy on the Hornets on the other side of the ball. Now to do that, you'd have to make four different groups, right? You'd have to make a group that says key player, conditional player Giannis, and then put in all of the Hornets. You'd have to click through and put in all the Hornets and say minimum one, maximum three or something, whatever you want. And you have to do that 3 times, one for Giannis, one for Middleton, one for Holiday. Then you'd also have to make a group that puts in Giannis, Holiday, and Middleton and say max 1, right? Because you don't want more than 1. Maybe you don't want more than 2. You could do that. Now imagine doing that over 9 games and you're going like, well, if I play this guy, I want to play that guy. Like if you want to do those things, it sometimes could end up with you having 20, 30, 40 groups. And you have to repeat things over and over again. But let's say you wanted to do something like that. And he's like, in half my lineups, right? I want to have the Charlotte, Milwaukee, right? So it's like, if I have 1 Buck, I have 2 Magic in it, right? In 50% of my lineups. You're done. You don't have to make those groups anymore, right? And you can make as many of these stacks as possible. Let's say you only want 10% of your lineups like that, right? Maybe you want another 10% of your lineups, right? Because we mentioned the number of players. So you click on Milwaukee again, and you go, I play 1 Milwaukee and then only 1 Magic player, right? And maybe you set up one that's 2v2, right? You could set up a couple of these if you wanted to. All it is still it's the same thing that you would do in groups, just much easier, much quicker, right? So it's not about like, oh, you should be game stacking like and making these secondary correlations. You don't have to. But if you wanted to, it's so much easier using this game stack type of interface than it is to make 40 or 50 player groups. So just because we have a stacking feature there doesn't mean it's like, oh, that means you stack an NBA. No, it doesn't. It just makes it easier for you to do anything that you'd want to do in groups that you don't necessarily need, right? Because you could do, I want these types and these types and these types. And then on smaller slates, it makes it even easier. On a 3-game slate, it's like, I just want to stack up each game, right? You want to have 4 guys from one side, 3 guys from the other, and one, you obviously have to play 3 teams. And it's like, I just want all my lineups to look like that. Just so if 1 game goes off, I got all of that, and 2 games blow out. Well, you know how hard it is to do that on a 3-game slate with player groups, right? You're gonna have to do like so many groups, every different group. You got to have at least 2 with this and that and this. So much easier. Just you have it done in 5 seconds, 10 seconds by using this interface. So that's really what the stacks interface is for. Wesley Harrant has a question about NHL, which I don't play, but maybe I can answer. Are you more likely to stack your defenseman in NHL with your stack? Correlation may mean more since the position isn't very high scoring. Possibly. It's hard for me to tell. I do not play NHL. I would assume in NHL you do this very similar to soccer. You play. Do you get? I'm not sure in NHL. Do you get like shutout points? So I know in soccer you would correlate your goalkeeper and defense, but that's because if they keep a clean sheet, the defenseman actually gets points for it. But no, I don't. I can't answer the NHL. That would be good to go into our Discord, our RotoGrinders Discord. Sign up if you're a premium member. Click on the link in the description. Get $10 off your first month. And go ask in there. Go ask in our NHL chat. But I'm sorry, I don't play NHL DFS. I'm not sure of the scoring, but all I know is that goalkeeper in NHL is very similar to goalkeeper in soccer, right? It's like just goalkeeper is just a luck box position. Someone gets, tons of saves or they get no saves and they get the win and the shutout or something like that. And the cheap goalkeepers, expensive goalkeepers, anyone could score any amount of points at any time. Let's see. MJC, using probability in NBA when constructing lineups. Do you look at past data to come up with the percentage of times a player gets 50 points versus 30 points? No. I don't. Everything that entails is already in the model. You know how many times I have to say that? So many people. I think DFS would literally be dead if the amount of people who played DFS could be close to dead if the amount of people who played DFS would just understand that anything you're looking at is already in the projections, right? That's how ridiculous it is. Okay, anything that you could possibly look at that would make any bit of difference is already in the projections, already in their projected range of outcomes. It's already there. It's already in there. You're making spaghetti. You're making a dish. You're stirring the pot. You're making a soup. You're making a stew. Who knows? It's already in there. You're trying to, I need to find, no, it's already in there. Everything about projecting the players, obviously the minutes you have to make. There's some manual things you put in, right? Our projections team come up with the minutes and everything and adjust some of the rates, right? But they know basketball more than I do, so I trust them. But once you get these numbers, you don't have to care about the sport at all. You're done. You're done. It's already in there. Why wouldn't it be? Do you target high total games? I don't even know what the total of the games are. You know why? It's already in the projections, right? Do you care about how good this team is against the run? No. I don't know what teams are. I mean, I know because I listen to content and people mention it. But no, I don't care. You know why? It's already in the numbers. It's already in the numbers. That's the whole point of signing up for RotoGrinders. That's the whole point of having a projection model, an unbiased mathematical method of getting the most accurate projected range of outcomes for players. Once you got that, now you're just building plus EV lineups. That's it. Just use that, use ownership, and you're done. There's nothing else to look at. Well, I mean, I say it a million times, but there's still, I would say 90% of people I talk to still don't do it. It's amazing to me. Just I go, what do you people ask me what I look at? I look at the projections. I go, so you don't look at the totals, you don't look at you don't look at the last 3 games, you don't look at who they, and I go, no, why should I? Don't you need to know all this information? It's like, yeah, it's in the projection. Thank God it's in there. Thank God it's in the model. It's already accounted for. So when someone looks at this guy doesn't projects well, and he's X, Y, and Z, it's like now you're double counting. Whatever you're talking about, it's already there. Where you go, this guy has a great matchup. How come he projects so poorly? It's like, yeah, he projects poorly even despite the good matchup. You're weighing that good matchup way too heavily. The model isn't. The model's doing it appropriately. It's like a lot of it is just trust. right? We have a model, right? Our models are worth God knows how much money. Like I take a look at the price of RotoGrinders and I go, it's insane that it's that cheap. To make like Cardi with the Blitz, for instance, I think he charges $200 or something like that. Or for the bat, no, the bat is better because the bat you're using MLB like every day, right? $200, $300. You know how cheap that is? For me to make a projection model as good as the bat would cost me $30,000 to $50,000 worth of man hours to do, and I would probably still not even be that. I wouldn't even be as accurate as that. So it's like to pay $200 for it. I mean, why isn't it more money? Like, why? It already does everything for you. That's the point. Let's see. Melvin Pitts, hey Blender, can you discuss the field size more? For example, how weird should you get and how close to optimal should be for the field size? I'm stuck there. All you have to do, the smaller the contest, the less I say the same things over and over and over again. If you're going to ask, okay, okay, I have to calm myself down. If there's a number, if the question can be answered with a number, it's a dumb question. Okay? People ask, how much projection versus ownership should I be giving up? And that's like asking, how do I hit 100-mile-an-hour fastball over 450 feet to a batter? You go, how do I do it? And you go, well, there's no way to do it. There's no one thing to do. And if there was one way to do it, you know, baseball games would never end. Baseball, I mean, literally, they'd have to shut down Major League Baseball because once you find out that way to do it, in the top of the first inning, there'd be 7,000 million runs. And the opening day of the season would never last past the top of the first inning, right? Because you just do it that way every single time and hit it 450 feet. And every batter would come up, the pitcher would come up and do it. And understand what I'm saying? It's like the whole point is finding the line. Where is the line of how much projection versus ownership for the field size that I'm in? If there was an actual number that could apply to every slate, I would never tell you. You know why? Because I'd have $17 trillion because I'd win I'd take out loans, right? If there was an actual correct answer that you literally could close your eyes, build 150 lineups and just print like you're the Federal Reserve. Because that doesn't exist, there's no correct answer to that question. The goal is to find that line on every slate, which will be different depending on a million other variables. So your goal, come close to it. Now, once you're close to that, right, you know how many lineups you could choose in that range? On tonight's slate in NBA, our 9-game slate, there's plus EV lineups, there's probably 20,000 for the large field GPP. Probably 20,000 plus EV lineups. Obviously, there's tons of I mean, you could leave 30,000 on the table and play garbage guys. Yeah, those are combinations that exist. There's probably, I don't know, 10 to 20,000, something around that range that all are plus EV. And let's say you're only playing 10. Well, you could choose any 10 of them. Some are a little bit higher. Some have different distributions. Some either show up way first and way last a lot of times. Sometimes they're have a little bit equity in different spots. But your goal is to find the line. If you're slightly off on the line, that you still may be playing plus EV lineups, right? That's why bluntly judging in your roto tracker of top 1% finishes, that's a good, a good signal. It's not perfect, but it's like, oh, I'm going to play 3 slates. What did I do wrong? Like take a look at my lineup. And I'll take a look at the lineup, and I could look at the lineup and go, that looks fine. And sometimes I'll look at the lineup and go, I think it's a little too chalky, or I think it's a little too contrary for the field size that you're playing. And the key words in that are I think, right? I'm judging it based on experience, right? I'm judging it based on studying other sharp players' lineups. Going into results DB, looking at their lineups and go, well, I played, in this single entry contest, especially because it's easier in single entry because everyone only has one lineup. This single entry 2000 entry contest, I played X lineup and the total projection was X, the ownership was X, was Y. And then you look at sharp players, not who won, but the sharp players lineups. So you take a look at the people, who are the sharp players? Take a look at their RG leaderboard. That's a good starting point. Take a look at their lineups. And then what is the project based on yesterday's projection and ownership? Go and just put in their lineup and go, how much was their projection based on your own projections that you have on RotoGrinders? And what was the total ownership? Then you go to the next one. What did their lineup look like? What did their lineup look like? Go to 20 different sharp players. Were you in the same range of ownership and projection? Even if you were 4v4s or whatever off of it, then if that's the case, you probably did fine. You're probably fine. If you were significantly off, if you're like, wow, my total ownership was like half all these other lineups, like maybe you got a little too contrary. If your total ownership is it's like, wow, I almost played a cash lineup. You were a little too chalk, right? In comparison to the most profitable, sharpest players that are playing that contest. That's a way to judge. Do I know what's the correct number? No, I don't know. I don't know what the correct number is, right? Everyone's judging that. That's the point of playing DFS. We're all trying to judge that, right? And we're not going to know until we have a very large sample size, right? Some slates, all the chalk fails. Some slates, all the chalk hits, right? And on the slates where all the chalk hits, you're going to be like, wow, I played too contrarian and I lost. It's like, that doesn't mean that you were in plus EV. Then on some slates, all the chalk fails and you played like only 2 or 3 pieces of the chalk and you still lost. And you're like, wow, I should get more contrarian. It's like, that's being very results oriented. That's not process oriented. Compare your lineups to the sharpest players, not what happened that day. Were your lineups similar in ownership, similar in projection? The range will be wide. That's how you could judge. And then you could judge by top 1% finishes. Are you getting more of your fair share of lineups into the top 1%? You know how you could judge that? Over a long period of time. I played for 2 weeks. That 2 weeks is nothing. I'd say a year is nothing. It's better than a week. Right? Some people ask, how long is a large sample size? Like, well, it's all relative, right? Obviously, if you only have 1 week's worth of data, well, look at 1 week's worth of data. It doesn't mean much. 2 weeks means more than 1 week, right? 2 months means more than 1 month. 2 years means more than 1 year. But at you only have a certain amount of data. You're going to have to look at it somewhere. As the sample size gets larger, the more and more confident you could be in it. But especially with this type of stuff, especially if you're playing GPPs, that sample size needs to be large, right? You could play 5 seasons worth of NFL. 5 seasons worth of NFL is what? It's not even 100 slates. Okay. You'll play more MLB slates in a year than you will playing 5 years worth of NFL. And it's quite possible in 1 year of MLB playing GPP, you'd be down. You'd be down money. Playing well, right? You're playing well. And you just didn't get the binks in MLB for 1 season, which is probably 150 slates? You know what 150 slates are in NFL? That's like 7 to 8 years of NFL play? Assuming just the main slates, right? The Sunday slates. So if you played NFL GPPs for 7 years that are unprofitable, you could still be playing. You could be playing extremely well. That's possible. So understand what these sample sizes are. You get 6 weeks into the NFL season. I have 6 weeks of Sunday slates. I haven't cashed a single lineup in single entry GPP. Like, cry me a river. That's what you act like that wouldn't be normal. Your expectation would be 1 out of 5, right? If the top 20% get paid. If everyone was equal, you'd only cash 1 out of 5 times. Cash 1 out of 5 times. So understanding what those large sample sizes are. Let's see. Anything else before we get out of here? Smooth Jimmy Apollo, you're still going to be doing Stupid Saturday. No, Stupid Saturdays are done. That's what the Discord and the Zoom calls are for. That's what this show is for, right? I'm answering questions on this show as it is, so there's no reason for me to do Saturday streams. MJC, would you say projections across the industry are fairly similar night to night? Well, it depends on the team. You know, certain times, you know, guys out, the rotations can be, you know, there's a lot of variance in the rotations. I don't know. Are they going to play big? Are they going to play small? Are they? I mean, a lot of stuff could happen there. The models are similar. But like, if you believe it's like, no, I think this guy's going to play 28 minutes, not 24 minutes, then just put in 28 that you put it in. Right? Change the minutes. That's perfectly fine for you to do. Oh, let's see. Paul Adair, is it a waste of time to use Excel to score players based on their projected ceiling ownership? Is that baked into RG like a boom bust? Yes, we have a smash percentage. For NBA, that's what you'd be doing, right? The smash percentage here that's exactly what you're trying to do in Excel. It's already in there. Like I said, everything's in there. Melvin Pitts, explain what you mean by having the field sizes information. How would you use the third piece of data? Well, the types of lineups that you'd be building for 100-man contest is different than a 200,000-man milli-maker contest, right? So you're not building lineups in a vacuum. A lineup that you'd make for the milli-maker is going to be much different than a lineup that you're going to be making for the Thunderdome, a 40-man Thunderdome contest, right? So that's what I mean by having the field sizes information. Because the field size will determine how much projection you're willing to sacrifice for ownership, right? Top heavy pay, yeah, $1 million to first, 100,000 to second, stake knives for third place, right? And you're competing against 200,000 lineups. Like you could. I'm going to sacrifice 30 points in projection, 40 points in projection. That can still be plus EV because your goal is to win first. I mean, it's essentially you have to beat all of these lineups and then come in first. Like, I'm going to fade all the chalk. You could do that in that contest. You're playing a 40-man contest. You could pretty much play your cash lineup into that contest. Pretty much. Your cash lineup, as long as, you know, if there's a bunch of dummies in there, your cash lineup may be positive EV. Right? If the chalkiest lineup possible, maybe plus EV in that contest. In the milli maker, it isn't. That cash lineup, not assuming even with the duplication. I'm saying even if it was unique or something, probably doesn't have enough leverage that you're not going to get first place. You make cash a lot more often, yeah, true, but all the money is up top. So that's what I mean by the field size. If you're building for X contest, you need to know that first before you build lineups. So you're not build like I'm going to build 3 lineups into 3 different contests. One is a 100-man contest, one is a 1,000-man contest, and one is a 100,000-man contest. Well, it's the whole 3 different lineups. It would be 3. You can't just build one line. I'm going to build one lineup and put it into all 3. You could, but whatever would be optimal, you know, plus EV for a 10,000, 100,000-man contest is going to be way too contrarian for a 100-man contest. Like, you shouldn't be giving up that much projection in a 100-man contest. And then if you use the 100-man contest in the 100,000, you'd be like, now you're not dropping enough ownership, right? You're not going to you may come in first in the 100-man and end up coming in 48th in the 100,000-man, right? You don't want that. You want to get more. Hey, Jordan, do you use the custom settings tool in build rules? Usually not. No. Any suggestions? Not uncrabby cabby. The settings don't matter. Settings literally don't matter. Stop worrying about the settings of an optimizer. The settings do not matter. Stop. I'm going to repeat it 1,000,000 times until people get it. The settings of an optimizer do not matter. The lineups you make do. Okay? Make lineups. Okay? The optimizer is an efficiency tool. That's all it is. Lineup HQ is purely 100% an efficiency tool. Okay? I can make my lineups without Lineup HQ. You know how? I could go into Excel and do the same exact calculations. And go, what projection number do I want? What ownership number do I want? Make me those lineups. Of course, I can make 100,000 of those lineups. Now the question is that, well, I'm only playing 10. So what out of how do I reduce that down? So if I'm looking to make a lineup, hand build a lineup. I mean, I know I've said this 774 times. Hand build one lineup. I don't believe, I truly believe this. 99, I would say 99% of people should never touch an optimizer. Never. Until you hand build your lineups for at least 1 year straight. Hand build lineups. Even if you're playing large field GPPs, play hand build 20 lineups. You can look at the projections here. You can look at the ownership and just hand build them. Go, okay, I'm going to play this lineup, and then I'm going to play that lineup. And you hand build them. You insert them on your phone in the app. Once you do one, do another one, do another one, do another one, do another one. You know what would be better? If it was some automated way to do it. So you would have, now build your 20 lineups by hand. Build it by hand. Don't touch a goddamn thing. Only do it by hand. Build 20 lineups by hand. Put those lineups to the side. I want you to now go into Lineup HQ and make those 20 lineups come up. Those exact 20 lineups. How would you do it? You'd look at those 20 lineups and go, oh, I got 10 lineups with X player. So that's what, 50%? How do I get 50% of this player into these lineups? How do I get these players? That's all you're doing with the settings. What lineups do I want to play, and how do I make them more efficiently so I don't have to hand build 150? It's not a way to solve what lineups to play. It's a way to build lineups that you want to play. So many people go in and like, what's your setting? And they press a button and they get 100 lineups. Like, oh, this is what I want. No. Build one lineup. These are the types of lineups I want to build. I want to build 5 of these types of lineups. I want to build 5 of those types of lineups. I want to build 10 of those types of lineups. How do I get the tool to do it for me? There's 100 ways to do it. I mean, if you need a custom setting in order to do that, then use it. If you need a build rule to do it, then use it. If you need an exposure, then do it. If you're like, oh, I'm going to play Hornets. I'm going to play Hornets and then Giannis together. Okay, well, then you can set up a player group for that. What if your lineups don't look like that? Well, then you don't have to set up the player group for it. So it's not, the settings don't matter. The settings depend on what lineups you're building. So what lineups I'm building, what lineups you're building are completely different. Or they can be similar and we do it in completely different ways, right? So it doesn't matter. Let's see. Anything else? Right, so don't focus on settings at all in an optimizer. It's never about settings, never. Like any question, literally any question about a setting is a stupid question. Unless you just like literally don't know what it does. And most of the settings in an optimizer are around diversification and not around strategy. Right? So I'm going to build one lineup. Like take a look here. I don't have any ownership here. Right? So if I build one lineup, oh, that's the one. Like people are going in here thinking that that's how they get the answers. All I would do is I would look and see like who projects well, right? Good smash, what, Levert? Who are the highest smash players, right? Reddish, high variance, right? Who am I playing at center? Do I play Gafford? Is everyone going to play Jokic? I have no idea what the ownership's going to be. So I could come together and go, maybe I should play a lineup that looks like X. And it's like, well, I want to have a lineup that looks like X, and then I have a lineup that looks like X with a 2v2. And then another X with a 2v2, and another X with a 2v2, another X with a 2v2. Well, if I'm doing a 2v2, that means unique players would be 2. If I want more diversification, I could do a 3v3. I could do a 4v4. But maybe I want to be concentrated on that one game. I want to play a lot of that one game and then have 2v2s. Well, then I'd be using 2, right? I could use 1 if I want even less diversification. But there's no. I'm going to put in all these settings and press the build button, and then it come all profitable lineups come out. That's not how an optimizer works. Right. So anytime you ask someone what are their settings, it's always there's no way that that's possibly a smart question. You could say I'm building lineups that look like X. Do you think that's good from a projection ownership standpoint for this contest? Okay, yes, on that individual lineup, yes. I could agree or not agree, and that would still only be my opinion. And go, okay, I think that looks fine. And most of the time, that's going to be my response. That looks fine. And then you're going to show me another lineup, and I'm going to go, that looks fine. You're going to show me 100 lineups, and I go, that looks fine. They go, all these lineups look fine. Yeah, they look fine. Like I have 100 lineups too, and they look nothing like those. But they may look similar, but not that much like those. They go, well, how come you think my 100 lineups are fine? Well, your 100 lineups are fine. It's like, because there's 20,000 lineups that are fine. I'm playing 100 of these, and you're playing 100 of those. That's the only difference, right? That's what it's like some chalky player or something like that. It's like, I'm playing 100 lineups that have none of that player, and you're playing 100 lineups that have 100% of that player. And both those sets are fine. They're both fine. They're both fine, right? They rely on completely different outcomes, but the expected value of those lineup sets may be equal to each other, close to each other, similar to each other. Those are the concepts you need to grasp. I mean, that's what game theory is. That's why I join in on the game theory Discord. It's still going on, right? People are in this chat and chatting in there, right? So sign up. You can sign. You click on my face on the RotoGrinders home screen on the right on the homepage, right? Join Premium, RotoGrinders Premium. Click on the link in the description. Get $10 off your first month, and then you connect your RotoGrinders account to Discord. You can click on this little Discord thing. You could click on my face. It'll connect your account and join us in there. I mean, all these types of questions. I mean, that's what I talk about in there, right? And I have alerts for all the Zoom calls or whatever, or anything that very important. I don't send out. I'm not going to be sending out many alerts, only if it's important. So you could always go in there, put in the exclamation point Blender, and you get the alerts from me. So join me in there, and I'll be back tomorrow. Be back tomorrow as always. Give me those thumbs ups on your way out the door. Give me thumbs ups on your way out the door, and subscribe if you're new. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. We got We got the Swolecast this afternoon. We got Grinders Live NBA later today. Crunch time for premium members. Whole bunch of stuff. We got I think the NFL Pick Six show or something later tonight, and a ton of contests as always on this channel. But I'll see you tomorrow, answering your DFS strategy questions as always on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.